Hello, Horus Heresy fans. Today I have something a bit different for you. It's an audio-only episode, and this is an appearance I made on the Horus Hour podcast, which I was very kindly invited onto by Singh and Varela, the co-presenters. We're going to be talking about heresy rumours and heresy background, and maybe even a bit about models as well. So, grab a drink, grab a snack, sit back, and enjoy the episode.
Hello, citizens of the Imperium, and welcome back to another episode of Horus Hour. I'm your host, Singh. With me, as always, my venerable sigillite, Varela. How are you today, Varela?
I'm doing fine. We got a cool episode today, I'd say, right?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting chat because today we are joined by a staple of the heresy community, Leakycheese. Leaky, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Singh and Varela. I'm probably going a bit of a shade of red now because that was very flattering. Yeah, I'm great.
Yeah, no, it's well. We always, you're my go-to guy for sort of heresy news and the latest pictures off Warhammer Community before I've had a chance to catch them myself. So I'm always looking forward to seeing your tweets and seeing what you come up with.
Well, I do like to come up with things about the Horus Heresy.
Yeah, and I've noticed lately you are working on a Night Lords commission. Is that correct?
Yes, I am indeed. It's an absolute monster of a commission. It's probably somewhere in the region of 45,000 points when built. Yeah, and actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I've just completed the first half of it for the client, and I met her yesterday at the London Salute Game Show, which is the UK's largest independent war game show. So I met the client yesterday, and I handed it over to her. So that was really good fun. I was sad to see them go, so I was really pleased with how it turned out. But yeah, I've been busy with Night Lords, but I am going to be doing some of my own now. So that's
Great.
going to be interesting.
Well, out of curiosity, have you got a favorite legion? I've seen you sort of all over the place during the time we followed you on Twitter. Do you have any that particularly resonate?
I think there's some truth in that. I am all over the place with what I like in the heresy. I think that there's something. If I looked, I could find something in any legion that I could pick and say, right, that is going to be my army. So for example, let's take the often fun poked at Ultramarines. I think the Ultramarines in the Heresy are really rather interesting, and some of the background material gets into a different aspect of them to, let's call it, the stereotype of Games Workshop's marketing. And if I were to do the Ultramarines, I would do the 22nd chapter, which is built around prescribed weapons like rad, phosphex, lots of destroyers, because it's a very different side to them, but it's something that they're going to have. But I like all sorts of heresy. I've got a Word Bearers army, Iron Hands, Night Lords to come next, Word Bearers. I've got Solar Auxilian. I've got 2 Mechanicum armies as well.
Wow. How long have you been collecting?
Heresy, I can't remember when I got into it. It wasn't right at the start. I think it was 2013. What brought me into it was the Mechanicum, actually, of all things.
Okay. Yeah, Varela's a big fan of a Mechanicum, and he doesn't like Ultramarines at all. But he's outnumbered now, so he's got nowhere to hide.
I'll stand and fight.
Praise be to the Omnissiah.
Hell yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
I always think, what's not to like about giant war machines that definitely aren't AI, but just might go AI if you treat them bad.
Yeah, exactly. I think Mechanicum is one of my favorite books, at least that we've covered so far as well. I think it's probably going to make it into the top 5. Although ironically, I think one of my favorite parts of it is the idea of the Imperial Fists action towards the end of the book, where they launch their raids on the Factorum to recover equipment for the Siege of Terror, which I think is, I'm a big fan of all those sorts of lesser spoken sort of engagements, which the new, I forget what they're called, but the new PDFs that are coming out from Warhammer Community sort of tend to look at.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, and great book. I agree. Mechanicum is an amazing novel. I think I tend to listen to heresy novels on Audible these days, which is mainly a time limitation thing. In that I can listen to that and do something else, be it driving, hobbying, whatever. But Mechanicum was one of those few books I actually sat down and read the paper copy, and I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a very well written story. It builds a world of Mechanicum in 30k. It also has so much action around the Titans, and then the scene at the end, which I won't spoil, but it was a genuinely mind-bending moment in sci-fi writing.
Absolutely. If you haven't had a chance to check out Mechanicum yet, what are you doing? Get yourself down to a secondhand bookstore. I'm sure there'll be a copy around somewhere. Yeah, I mean,
Whoa, are you implying that people sell the book? Hold up.
I think people want to spread the joy that the book brings them, and they therefore they pass it on or regift. But yeah,
Absolutely. Or just go for a free trial with Audible if you haven't already, and choose that as your free book.
I've only done Audible. I got Audible for a book completely unrelated to Warhammer, and then forgot to cancel it, the free trial, and so accidentally ticked over and got a credit. And I was thinking, and bearing in mind, I think I'd been back in, I was in the hobby when I was Games Workshop's entry target age, so sort of 10 to 13, sort of getting into it, and then it sort of dropped off, and sort of video games took prevalence. But then basically it all started up again during uni when I just was like, well, what's a book series that I could start on Audible, because Audible seems quite good. And I was like, oh yeah, that Games Workshop series that I used to see. I vividly remember No Fear just coming out and it being all over on the book stand of a Warhammer, then Games Workshop shop that I was in. So I was like, oh, you know what, I'll give the first one of that a go. And then I finished Horus Rising. Immediately went to the Audible page and bought myself 3 more credits and just cracked on with the rest of the opening sort of 4 books, because it was mind blowing. The sort of Abnett and McNeil wombo combo of the first two books, building everything up and then just kicking it out from under you is I think is an absolute marvel of science fiction writing. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And once me and Varela started doing the series together, we've sort of realized how many factions in 40k sort of owe a lot of the better parts of their identity to the Horus Heresy that we sort of weren't aware of at the time. So, if you look at the Space Wolves prior to sort of Thousand Suns and Prospero Burns, they were basically just space Viking models, and then that Prospero Burns in particular gives them so much more depth and understanding, and I think there's quite a few that do that.
Yeah, that's a good shout, that, for an origin story that takes a step outside of, let's say, the general wider timeline to really try create something original and unusual about the Marine Legion. And yes, Prospero Burns does a wonderful job of that for the Space Wolves. I suppose the Thousand Suns is a similar sort of thing for the Thousand Suns. And depending what people think, what was the first Dark Angel novel? Descent of Angels.
Yeah.
The Caliban section of that I thought was also very interesting world building, although it was a bit, I found the writing style a bit ponderous at times, but the ideas I really liked.
Yeah, I think the consensus with the Dark Angels in particular seemed to be that the first one was sort of decent, and then when it was paired with the Fallen Angels book, and then they tied together really well, and obviously I think maybe Legion might be the best example. I'm not sure. I from what I understand, the Alpha Legion were just a color scheme of Chaos Space Marines almost before Legion, and then this has given them a very confusing origin story now. And
Yes,
what's your opinion on them? Are they actually good?
indeed. Well, yeah. What is your opinion about the Alpha Legion? Yeah, from and that book, Legion, poses the reader a very interesting question to try and get the head round with that. And yeah, it creates a reason for betrayal which no one would have expected.
That's right. I think Dan Abnett's on interview saying he didn't expect it, and he took it to the editor. The editor and was allowed to get away with it, which I think was a brave choice, and it seemed to really work.
I should have. I met Dan Abnett at a book signing at Warhammer World once. That would have
Really?
been a great question to ask him. Instead, I asked him about the character of John Grammaticus.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting, actually, listening to him describe John Grammaticus, because actually Grammaticus was a really important part of that novel. And talked a bit about his ideas around him, and then how he was created as something that was going to span across a number of stories, as we saw.
Yeah. He I didn't even realize that he was in Vulcan Lives. So we did Vulcan Lives before we did Legion, and then I sort of realized halfway through, I was like, now Varela's not good. I'd read Legion already. I'd sort of got a bit of a backlog, and then Varela started the podcast with me, and I thought, Varela, I've made a faux pas here, so we're gonna have to go and do Legion as soon as possible, so that you're aware of who this John Grammaticus bloke is, because he just sort of shows up in Vulcan Lives and.
Well, that would be a great subject of an episode, because I think Legion he's kind of in this sort of fuzzy area of my 5 favourite heresy novels.
I was going to ask if we could get a sort of a number 1 spot or a top 5, perhaps.
Oh, I mean, I'm terrible at picking favourites. And asking me to pick a favourite heresy novel is a bit like asking me to pick a favourite child. But
Varela asked Graham McNeil that question, the same question, and Graham McNeil said the exact same thing.
Did he?
Yeah. So you don't have to give them to us in any particular order, then. But do you have, if there's a top 5 off the top of your head?
Sure. Yes. Horus Rising.
Okay.
Fantastic world building, amazing story, and very thought provoking. There's some very clever stuff in that novel about the Imperium, and it's one of those novels that every fan of 40k, even if they're not interested in the heresy, should read, because it explains the Imperium in a very useful and insightful light. So yes, Horus Rising, the first heretic.
Yeah, I thought that was coming. Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Dembski-Bowden did an amazing piece of creative writing with the first heretic. It's such a clever novel in how he makes you almost root for Argol Tal, and it is bizarre because you end up sympathizing with someone who turns out to be a monster, but it really makes you question about what is good and evil, and where does the line sit between the two. So that's 2. A more recent one I read that I really enjoyed was Unremembered Empire. Unsurprisingly, our good friend John Grammaticus made a reappearance in this novel.
That's right, yeah.
But that wasn't the main reason I really liked it, although I always liked John Grammaticus. The main reason I liked it was Dan Abnett took the Ultramarines, and I felt made them really interesting to me for the first time in the Heresy. Because Ultramarines have got this kind of like, they can seem a bit staid almost.
Yeah,
this
I know what you mean.
Theoretical practical. But in that novel, Abnett really brought Gilliman to life, and his Ultramarines as well, and gave them a unconventional and human side that I'd not seen before, and I just found it so compelling, and a great story as well.
Yeah, Varela hasn't covered that one, but now he's going to add that to the list of novels not to be excited for because he's chosen a hill to die on with the Ultramarines.
That was 3. So my fourth would be Legion. And Legion is brilliant. It's very much about the character of John Grammaticus as well as the Alpha Legion. The story it's a fantastic story, both in terms of scope and the way it works. A plot. It's almost like a whodunit, which is unusual in Heresy. And I love it how it's also told from the perspective of the old 100 or an element of them, i.e. the Geno 25 Chiliad. And the characters of that unit, and all of them. Like Namet Jera. What a brilliant character he is, and Hatardo Bronzy.
Yeah.
And I've lost it for a second. Who was the other Hetman?
Bronzy.
You already said Bronzy, right?
Yeah, I said Bronzy. Yeah.
Oh, that's the other Hetman is like the main guy. Oh no, how do I not remember this?
Yeah, at this point, I think the listeners are probably going, "It's him! It's him!"
Yeah, I know that feeling when we're recording, and I'm like, what was that Titan Legion called in Betrayer? And I can hear people grabbing their monitor and screaming at me.
Was it Seneca?
It was Sonica.
Sonica, that's it. Yes.
Not to worry, I've pulled up Lexiconum.
There you go.
Nice move. Covered. Yeah, nice research there, Varela.
It's easy on the spot.
To tell the story from the perspective of humans caught up in the Great Crusade was a stroke of genius. So I highly recommend Legion. Even if, that's a book that I would recommend to anyone who likes a good sci-fi yarn and a well-written stories. I think it's very strong as a standalone. And I think that's 4 now, so I need a 5th. And for a 5th, I could pick Fulgrim, but it gets nudged out by 1,000 Suns.
Okay, there you go.
And 1,000 Suns was a very thoughtful novel about the Primarch who did nothing wrong.
He did not. 100% agree.
Oh God, I'm so outnumbered in everything right now.
Again, it's got some very strong non-Space Marine characters that really bring the storytelling to life, and I suppose it kind of puts the Space Marines in a place where they actually exist, and that doesn't always happen when you have stories that are written entirely from the perspective of the Marines. As a matter of fact, it quite often doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It was I fell in love with that book from the start because I read it. I was listening to it. I started listening to it when I was driving up to the Lake District in the UK to do a long mountain hike. And in the first act, let's say, it's set up in the mountains of a particular planet. And to listen to that and then to go do this mountain hike, it was just like this great, it was like what an amazing thing to have bouncing around my head.
Transported there.
You just come across some black stones out in the middle of the mountain. Oh no moment.
Yeah, I think when we spoke to Graham, I don't think he said it outright necessarily, but it's very clear that Magnus is his sort of, the journey he's made for Magnus. I think we've only covered sort of Thousand Suns, and then Prospero Burns obviously pairs it, but I think there's the Crimson King, and then there's one more, because I think a lot of people were worried Magnus's story was sort of unconcluded, and then Graham wasn't included in the announcement of the Siege authors. And I think there was obviously a little bit of kickback, and Games Workshop added him as the novellas with the novellas, and then in the Fury of Magnus novella, I think Graham sort of alluded to that he's been able to conclude Magnus's Heresy character exactly as he wanted him to. So I'm very excited about that going forward. But yeah, Magnus definitely seems to be sort of Graham's baby. The way he would never he never committed to telling us his favorite anything, but it was reading between the lines. It was Magnus. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, there you go. Yes, that's my five first among equals Heresy novels.
Yeah, in no particular order, but yeah, I think that's an interesting top five. I think some. So, for example, I feel like No Fear gets into a lot of people's top fives, and I know that there's probably a lot of joint sixths in your top five. I imagine there's probably quite a few waiting to sort of break down the door and sort of creep into that number 5 spot.
Yes. Oh, you could name just about any Heresy novel that I've read so far. I've not read them all. I'm a long way along, but yeah, and I could. Most of them, I've really enjoyed the majority of them. There's only one that I didn't, and out of such a large book series, that's impressive. So yeah, you could pick any one and talk about what was interesting in it, what was cleverly done, what was exciting about it. Yeah.
Do you read in the order of release, or just whatever you're sort of fancying at the time, or do you follow sort of some of the lists that are out there?
I mainly follow the release order.
Okay.
But I have used some of the information. I've used some information out there to skip certain books or move forward certain books, and then and some of them I've skipped and then gone back to, and was glad I went back to them because I found what would be an example of that. What was the novel about the assassins?
I haven't covered that one. I haven't done that one myself yet. I think we've. I can't tell you. Again, this is the sort of moments you get when you're doing a podcast where you feel like someone listening out there is.
But yeah, Nemesis. That's it. Yeah, thank you. Yes, apologies to the author of Nemesis for not remembering the title of your work, but I did enjoy it. Thank you.
Yeah, but that's one that you sort of passed and then came back to, is it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, and I think that was when I passed and came back to it, and I think I did the same thing with what was it called? The Outcast Dead.
Yeah,
And I'm glad I came back to that because that was an excellent story. Really, really interesting.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're on our own sort of race to terror because we want to try and get sort of to the catch up comfortably for the finish of the series. I think luckily we've got some time. I think there's 2 more. Is there 2 more Heresy books left to come? And so we've planned out every season is planned out and sort of not set in stone, but there were a couple of novels that I sort of was like, do we put them in? And Outcast Dead was one of them, and I managed to find some space somewhere so that it sort of fits with the theme of the series, because we always try and first off, we try not to do too much back to back of the same Legion, because obviously we want to sort of keep it fresh for both ourselves and for people listening at home, and we also want to sort of keep to a certain sort of narrative structure. So, for example, when we decided we were going to put First Heretic into last season, everything else, those 3 books just sort of fell into place, because you can't really do First Heretic without doing No Fear and the whole sort of Monarchia Vengeance arc, and then you can't do No Fear without doing Betrayer and concluding Argyle Tiles story 07. But yeah,
quite right. Yeah. Oh well, I'm glad you'll be covering the Outcast Dead, because it's a well written story, and it's fascinating in that it tells a tale about part of the Imperium that we don't know much about. That's a critical part of the Imperium, the Navis Nobilitae, and anyone who's interested in Thunder Warriors should read The Outcast Dead.
Oh, is that right?
And also a little reading tasting notes here for your viewers. if you've got book 6 Retribution, make sure you read the bot campaign as well. And then perhaps read the background on Ortec more. Just a thought.
There you go, listeners. You've been set some homework there by Leaky to crack on with. I guess before we move on, Varela, have you got anything that you'd like to add or ask Leaky?
I'm bad at this.
Yeah.
I don't bite, don't worry.
I'm so scared.
Varela's he's very much been sort of stories so far. I think we're trying to get him into miniature painting. However, his favorite Legion by a country mile is White Scars. And so I sort of explained to him the other day that there's sort of two colours that aren't that great to paint for Horus Heresy Legions, and that's white and yellow. Although
so they're tough colours, aren't they? Yeah.
Especially as a starter colour, white is tough. Yeah. So
I think just a thought on White Scars. Perhaps you could ease yourself in or build something around the Ebon Keshig.
Yeah, there you go. Because they're like the Terminator elite, aren't they? Or they're just the elite in general, aren't they? But they're black with a dab of a little bit of white. Yeah.
I mean, all in all, if I were to start painting miniatures, it would probably be Scutari or any other Mechanicum faction. So yeah,
red and metal is actually pretty easy in that sense. We're planning to do a trip either to Warhammer World next year, or we're sort of in the dark about Warhammer Fest. We're not really. I don't know if you've heard any whisperings about whether it's happening or not.
I've not as yet.
Yeah.
My gut feel is, if possible, they will run it.
Yeah, I think the NEC just did a big event. They just did. They're doing / just did Comic-Con, aren't they? So it's that's obviously working.
I mean, yeah, definitely, and I think obviously it's a learning experience, and we still are in uncharted territory, I suppose, with regards to the pandemic. But to use the example of Salute that I went to yesterday, so that was held at the London Excel, and the venue had taken the position of, if you're going to come into our venue, you have to do one of the following things. Either you have to show your vaccination record and have 2 vaccinations as per NHS guidelines. So I'm in the UK here, by the way. And then, as I said, if you can't do that, then you have to show a negative lateral flow test that's been done within the last 48 hours. So my daughter, who came with me, who's 15, she's had her first vaccination, but she won't be getting another one for some time, probably until she's 16, because that's a policy. But what she did instead is she just did a lateral flow test. And even when we got there was another person I knew and I saw. And unfortunately, they hadn't checked the website and they hadn't seen this requirement. But fair play to the London Excel, they actually had lateral flow tests on the door. So people could actually test there and then. And assuming it was a negative, then they were allowed on in. So with more events starting to do stuff like this and hopefully gaining confidence that measures are working, then I hope Games Workshop will have the confidence to run Warhammer Fest. If it's suitable.
Yeah. I did actually shoot them an email a few weeks ago, and they just sort of said, the unfortunate sort of standard Games Workshop reply: no news yet. Keep an eye on warhammercommunity.com and you'll be the first to know. And I was like, I don't think I will. I'm not very good at checking that website myself. I usually, if a Praetor gets announced, I see it about 10 times on Twitter before I've even moved over to Warhammer Community to read the article.
Yeah, that's how it works, isn't it? Yeah. But you mentioned that you were going to go to Warhammer World,
that's the plan. Even if Varela can get over here from Portugal, it's either whatever happens, we're going to try and go to Warhammer World, because apparently the dioramas there or something else.
I was just about to ask you, have you ever had opportunity to go, and I'm guessing you haven't?
I haven't yet, no.
I mean, I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to go on a number of occasions, and there's nothing else like it in the world for a war gamer or a fan of miniatures. It's brilliant, yeah. So if you can make it happen, it's well worth it.
Yeah, I think we're on track. Even if Games Workshop does no events, we'll just go for like a weekend to Nottingham and just sort of spend some time around there.
Yeah, and they seem to be really on top of things as well, because I went in, it was mid-July this year, so obviously not that long after things had started to open up again, but I was really impressed with how they'd organised everything. So they'd reduced the number of tables in the gaming hall, so that it was not as full as it would be. But we booked a table, and then we booked a time to have food in Bugman's. And yeah, it was very well handled, I thought. So yeah, I think they're doing the best under the current circumstances with accommodating guests.
Yeah. So yeah, fingers crossed that Warhammer Fest will happen. But if not, we'll just head on down to Warhammer World and do our own thing.
And yeah, you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that two WWE stars went recently. I don't know if you saw that on Twitter.
I did. Yes, I did see that. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, the hobby's everywhere.
It is. Yeah. I think it's good for the wider hobby to get some high profile, to see that there's some high profile people who have an interest in it.
Yeah, that's
participate. Right. Yeah, it's good to see.
But yeah, I mean, while we're on the topic of Warhammer World, home of Games Workshop and their production facilities, I guess we should probably get into the meat of this episode and talk a little bit about Horus Heresy 2.0, because that's obviously very tabletop oriented. We talk about it a fair amount, even though we just cover the books, and I do goad Warhammer Community's Twitter a little bit more than I should by joking about 2.0 in their replies. But yeah, it's probably the worst kept secret in tabletop gaming at the moment. And so I thought, while we've got you on, who's obviously got a love for the tabletop and the narrative, we could have a chat about what we know so far and what it means, sort of for the heresy going forward, and how it could be the start of something great if it's all true. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a quick rundown before any real proper leaks happened, you were Sherlocking your way across Games Workshop, Forge Worlds' range with the Code 30, the Code 30 theory. Do you want to give our listeners a quick breakdown for those who haven't seen those videos what Code 30 is?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so every Games Workshop product carries a product code, and this is it's like a stock code almost, and it's a series of numbers, and that doesn't sound very interesting, and it isn't. But within this series of numbers, there's 2 digits, and it's called the system code, and each product has got its own system code according to which gaming system it belongs to. So, for example, the code 01 is Warhammer 40,000, and 02 is Age of Sigmar, for example, and it goes on so on and so forth. I think 04 is Necromunda. I think 08 is Adeptus Titanicus, maybe. Okay. I think, yeah. Now, the interesting thing is, up until recently, all of the Heresy products that Forge World sell were incorporated within the 01 product code for Warhammer 40,000. So, as a business, they would see those. They saw it as being like one thing, all part of the same chunk. And and from a point like, if you were selling stuff and then wanted to analyze what your sales data was, I say this because I come from a background where I've got experience of data analysis. Okay. That's an important piece of information to be able to tell what is selling. Yeah. Right. Now, so there you go. Sorry, viewers. So hopefully it'll get more interesting now. Right. What I noticed was Forge World has started changing the 01 codes on all the Heresy products to 30 or 30. And I've looked at a lot of products. I looked at a number of products I had. So I made this video. I published it at the start of April, so it was April 2021. But I was able to go back to products that had been released the January before. So the first Code 30 product was the Arctur Bombard with the spicular rockets.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, great model. I love the Arcturs. I've got one. I've got 3 actually. Sorry. But yeah, I've looked at a whole series, and I noticed that all of the product codes for the Heresy range is moving on to this Code 30, and so it made me think, wait a second, what's going on here? So I made the video where I obviously showed this. I showed a whole series of examples that I had, and I posited the idea that Forge World / Games Workshop are creating Heresy as a separate product code, Code 30. So they've got clean sales data on the Heresy line. And it's like, well, why would you do that? Because they've been selling it for years. So I said, I think they're getting ready to do something big with it. While I was doing this, I also remembered some posts that were happening back in, they started happening back in March and April 2020. So, if I talk about Andy Hoare, do you know who I mean?
I do. So I know that he's worked on the Horus Heresy game system.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's worked for Games Workshop for many years. He's a long-standing member of the creative team, but I think he's a lead designer for the Heresy range. He's been about same for Adeptus Titanicus. But I remembered back in March, April 2020 on Instagram, where he's got an account, he started putting up a series of Heresy posts, and he'd not done anything on Heresy for quite a while. And then with the pandemic hitting and things getting cancelled last year, and then I saw the Code 30 starting to appear around Christmas or January of that year. I thought, yeah, there's something going on here. Games, I think they were getting ready for something, some sort of relaunch of Heresy or a new thing, something big for it to happen. And I think that back in March, April 2020, Andy Hoare was starting to put some posts on Instagram as some soft marketing.
Yeah, perhaps he was getting all that work on the Heresy was getting him excited, and he needed to start putting some models together. Is that sort of a thing you're thinking?
That's right. And that was another thing that I was thinking when I made the Code 30 video. So I made that and published it April this year. It was quite well viewed, certainly for a video.
Data analysis, yeah.
Yeah, for a data analysis. Well, the trick of data analysis is to make it interesting.
That's right.
It's with analysis, the trick is it's like routing through thousands and thousands of lines of data to get a couple of interesting sentences.
Yeah.
So I published that, and that was well viewed, and there was a lot of interesting, and I had all sorts of comments back on that, the full range of opinion, the full gamut of opinion, you might say. And then all of a sudden, in June 2021, a series of photos were leaked, and these photos showed what were clearly Space Marines wearing what we would call Mark 6 armor, and they were in the colours of two Heresy Legions, so the Sons of Horus and the Imperial Fists. And these were miniatures we'd not seen before. There were some miniatures in the shots that we knew, or we think we know, which are some Cataphracti Terminators. And then there was also a Spartan tank. And yeah, so I looked at those and I thought, this is a new range of plastic miniatures to support the Heresy. And then I thought, well, Code 30, there you go. There is something happening. Now, Games Workshop hasn't commented on these, so we don't know if they were leaks, or leaked on purpose for some reason, because you never know unless you're actually inside, you won't know. But things can be leaked to get interest when product perhaps isn't ready to sell for some reason.
Yeah, it seems, given the timeline that's currently taking place. We don't know. I think with the pandemic, it probably made things incredibly fluid. However, the fact that we still haven't heard anything seems that it was more of a unintended leak. Because my sort of understanding is a lot of people, myself included, are kind of hesitant to start picking up Horus Heresy models right now because of, I guess, a couple of things. I guess because we're waiting on that box set. 'Cause that box set is really decent in size, if it's true. And another thing is sort of one of the more noted features is what looks like an increase in scale of the Marines. They do look, because I believe what I've seen from what I can understand from the pictures is the cataphracti in the background are the ones that were released in Calf. I don't think they're new.
Yeah.
And the Space Marines compared to them look about sort of similar. It's definitely taller than a normal Firstborn or Horus Heresy Marine would be. So there's a lot, I think, with that in mind, a lot of people are kind of taking their foot off the gas about purchasing sort of Heresy infantry, at least, because they might not necessarily want a differing scale sized army. And purely from that point, it sort of feels like it might not have been intentional. My main question is, even if you're deciding you're going to leak something, how you manage to take such poor pictures. It really feels like this was in the middle of some sort of political thriller where they're in someone else's office and that person's about to walk in and they only have time to snap a couple of hastily taken pictures because the quality of the leak is something to behold in how bad it is.
Or maybe it's just some mind games, dude. They want you to think that.
Exactly.
The Games Workshop may be playing some 6D chess, but I digress. You were weaving a tale, so I'll let you carry on.
So yes, so the photos were leaked. There were clearly a couple of characters just out of shot, or well, I say out of shot. The image was obscured, and I can't. It looks like it might be due to the pixel direction of the camera relative to the screen that they were being displayed on. The photo was of a monitor, like a computer display. Or if it had been deliberately digitally altered to obscure them, I can't tell that. But certainly the miniatures in the foreground were quite clear. They were clearly Mark VI Marines, and they were clearly Heresy, no doubt about it. There was also a Contemptor Dreadnought. It's a version that we've not seen before because it's completely devoid of any iconography or seals or anything. So it's what you might call a clean Contemptor. So people were also thinking that's a new miniature. And then there's this Spartan as well, and people are instantly thinking we're going to get a plastic Spartan, which would be ace.
That would be something. I think even some people might have done some image adjustment of their own and revealed that there might be an individual on top of the Spartan who looks like he might be wearing Mark II, which would make my day. I will take everyone's tank commanders and then put them on legs and have a Mark II army. There you go.
I've not seen that. That'd be great. Well, we await the return of Mark II armor, don't we?
It's as part of a part of the chapter master Valrak rumor mill. Now I don't want to speak for Valrak. I'm a big fan of his. What I understand, I don't know if you've watched him, but he's got a source aptly named Alfarius, who doesn't miss. So Alfarius gives him stuff and to the point. So he gave Valrak information on 9th edition and Indomitus, and wasn't incorrect, and has done stuff to my understanding before that. So Valrak trusts him very much.
Yeah. So this source has been proven to be accurate then.
Yeah. So
right.
Whether that is 60 chess sort of leaking stuff to Valrak because he's got a very large audience base, or whether it is just someone who's got the inside track who likes Valrak and likes to give it to him. It's not for me to speculate or comment really. But what I understood is that I don't know where I was going with this, but essentially, I know that he has the sort of price list. Valrak has a price list. He's not going to talk about it just yet, but also, essentially that the box set is correct and is real. So that's all I'll say. What I'll say further to that. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, go on. Please finish.
What I'll say further to that is you probably saw we put a tweet up in the immediate aftermath of Warhammer Day. So the Khan got announced. Excellent model.
Yeah.
If I wasn't so afraid of white, he'd be on the list of things to get. But basically, in the Facebook comments of the Forge World post about the Khan, there was someone made a jibe that
I saw this.
Yeah, so basically, and Forge World kind of soft confirmed the box set in my eyes because they left a sarcastic tongue-in-cheek remark.
Yeah, tongue-in-cheek. I thought it was quite whimsical tongue-in-cheek. Yes, because I remember your tweets. I saw it. Someone said, "Wouldn't it be interesting if a new box set came out with infantry and tanks to go with this new Khan model?" Question mark, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then Forge World's Facebook team reply was, "I think you might be onto something there, Winky."
That's right. Yeah. So we scooped that.
Yeah.
I say scooped. I saw it. I thought this would be fun, and we'll put it on the Twitter. Now, the next day, and I'm not, I'm completely fine with it. Anyone could have found the comment, but basically our screenshot ended up in a Valrak video talking about it, which then subsequently got, I think it's over 10,000 views. The comment has now been deleted. I went back to check. The comment has now since been deleted. So I hope that there's not a now unemployed Forge World employee out there because I leaked because he put that comment down and I screenshotted it. I hope not. But their whimsical reply has now been deleted. However, the fact that it was there and it was the official Forge World sort of seems to me to at least point that the box set is real. And if it was fake, it would probably be the most elaborate fake leak in Games Workshop history.
Yeah. Hold that thought because there's something I need to come back to there around this.
Okay.
A piece of evidence I've become aware of.
Okay, interesting.
But it's a bit further down the line. So
no worries.
So Valrak, I don't know if Valrak's source was independent of this, but the same information was leaked in detail on NAFCA Blogspot or Facet 212. I can never tell what the name of that website is.
Fayette 212, I think is what Fayette. Yeah, it's like Magos and Magos with me and Varela because when Varela reads, so he read it, he's always understood it as Magos, and I listen to the audiobook where they call it Magos.
No, hold up, that's not it. I call it Magos too.
No, well, yeah, okay. Well, sorry, carry on.
Yes, well, I think Varela, as the resident Mechanicum fan, I think he gets say on this one, doesn't he?
I'll let him take that one. There you go. He
finally win something.
Go Varela. So yes, where was I? So that information was leaked on NAFCA Blogspot. I'm going to stick with that because we're going to agree on pronunciation. And yes, there was a detailed breakdown of the contents of a series of upcoming Horus Heresy box sets. There were also prices, although we don't know the unit of currency. So there, people speculated: are these prices in pound sterling or?
I think it says 240. So for the main box set, it does say 240 BP. Which I always understood.
I didn't pick up on that.
So for me, that I understand that as British pounds.
Correct.
Which I'm really hoping it's a different currency. If it's in yen, great. But
we're laughing then, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a lot of squids if it is squids.
Yeah, but yeah, that's been leaked as well, and I've looked through that, and the description in that leak is consistent with the information in the photos. Yeah, so it's either someone's playing us for a fool very well, or as Valrak has asserted with his source, it is a reliable source. So that is very interesting.
So for the record, I was on one of Valrak's live streams. I thought I'd put a cheeky comment in because he's just been. I don't even know Valrak. I'm just a big fan of his content. However, he had been away doing an excellent bit of charity work with the No Retreat Legends. I don't know if you saw that out in Gibraltar.
In Gibraltar, yes.
Yeah. So when he came back from that, he basically did a live stream, and as a Horus Heresy fan, the Fayette rumors had dropped while he was there. So I sent him I put a comment in the chat and just said, "Hey, have you seen the rumors that the box set's £240?" And he said, "Alfarius has given me the prices," and he looked directly into the camera and he said, "I'm not saying anything yet. We'll wait and see." And
okay,
I'm not a good enough reader of people to. He was giving me that stoic Imperial Fist, not giving poker face. So I couldn't really take anything away from it. I alluded to maybe there's a difference to the Fayette 212 posts, but I mean I guess that's semantic.
It's another piece of evidence. It's another piece of evidence, and the timing of it really caught my attention, perhaps more than the content, because this came out. This was it was the 1st or 2nd of November, but it was in the couple of days that immediately preceded Warhammer Day, and there'd been a lot of speculation that Warhammer Day was going to reveal a new Heresy starter set.
That's right.
As per the leaked photos, but they didn't. We had the Khan afoot in all of his glory.
Yes.
But it's very coincidental, isn't it, that within a couple of days this information comes out. And if you'd read White Dwarf back in the early 90s, you might know who Inquisitor Cryptman is. And one of Cryptman's maxims was never believe in coincidences.
Okay.
Yes, okay. This is one of my Inquisitor Cryptman moments for me.
Okay.
But there's more evidence, though, and there's more things that are interesting here. So the timing caught my attention. There's another thing about timing and soft marketing. Soft marketing. And this is around some activity a whole host of activity over on the Warhammer community website. So we've had a series of new Praetor and character miniatures being released. So we've had Malachurst, we've had Saul Tarvitz, other way around for release order. We've had Argel Tal in his, what we might call his form as depicted in
the first Betrayer more than.
Thank you, Betrayer. Yes, I've lost that for
his round phase.
Yeah. His round face. Yeah,
it's not a phase, Mom.
And then, there's that. And then we've had 3 scenario packs come out as well. Heresy Mission Packs. So these are PDF documents that the Warhammer community website made freely available. And there's 3 of these. There was the Battle for Pluto, which was the 6th of September. There was the Defense of Sotha, 4th of October. And then there was the Siege of Hydra Correlatus.
Yeah.
On the 2nd of November. I'm trying to read my handwriting here. It's not a good sign, is it? So I look at that, and again, that the timing of that feels like, well, it's kind of led up to the start of November, end of October. So was this originally planned to coincide with an announcement on Warhammer Day? And then there's more, though, with the timing and the coincidences, because if we jump across the media spectrum to White Dwarf now, there was an article published in the October issue. This is White Dwarf 469. And in this article, there was a Armor Through the Ages Horus Heresy article all about Space Marine armor types. And again, it's like,
why?
Why now? You know, any time over the last 2 or 3 years, you could have published this article. Why now? Just saying.
Yeah, it's very coincidental, isn't it?
Yeah. My hunch is, because I don't know for certain, I'm only looking at various bits of evidence I've noticed. Actually, no. Before let's just park that for a second. I'll tell you what my final little bit of evidence is, and this comes from GW Commercial Performance. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Deep dive.
yeah, so I heard a bit of him, like just some high level commentary around GW's commercial performance, and a few other bits from someone who's an investor. And interesting thing, so Games Workshop's Q1, which is June to August this year, their sales are up on the same period from 2021, which I was quite impressed by.
Yeah.
And the 2021 figure included the Indomitus sales as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So it sounds like they're continuing to do well. Within this, though, I was also told that the US has been importing a huge amount of stock of late, and the observation was, well, there could be two reasons for this. Either they're rebuilding their stock position, which had been depleted in the US, or they're pushing some new launch stock in for something else. Could that be a Horus Heresy
Boxing.
set?
Yeah.
So another piece of evidence, and yeah, is I don't know when it's going to happen, but my belief is, my hunch is, there's a new range of plastic miniatures coming for the Heresy. I think there's going to be some fine tuning of the rule set. I think they're basically going to stick with the same game, with some tweaks, and the current game isn't not needing some tweaks in certain areas.
I saw some just on that. I saw in some commentary, I think by Arbiter Ian, that in the leaks there's a scatter dice, which apparently I've not played much tabletop myself, but apparently that would be an indicator that it's sticking sort of in the sort of 7th edition.
Yeah,
it's not something that's in 9th.
Correct. Yes, that's right. There are a couple of bits of gaming paraphernalia in one of the photos that, to anyone who is a Heresy gamer, it screams. Well, or it speaks perhaps. Screaming is maybe a bit OTT, but it says we're going to be sticking with the rule set that uses templates and scatter dice. Something like what we have at the moment. If you understand the game, it's saying it's clearly not.
It's not an
going
overhaul.
to be, say, 9th edition or something completely new.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my hunch. This is coming. Now, as to when, I have a hunch that it was supposed to be announced on October in the Warhammer Day. Just looking at,
I think that's a fair assessment.
And something has happened to delay that. I don't know what, but that I think it has been delayed. Which then sort of raises a question, well, when will it be ready? Well, I don't know. I think probably the next realistic date for them to announce it will be around Christmas.
I was gonna say I don't know what Games Workshop sort of, to really get into it with your data analysis. What's the average sort of turnaround of announcement to release with Games Workshop? If you look at Indomitus and Dominion. Because Indomitus was back in the summer of 2020, was that? Sort of July that they announced 9th edition, was it? I want to say that there was a big summer review.
So 9th edition, I believe, if I remember right, that was announced in May.
Yeah.
And then it went up for sale in June. Normally, if you're looking at the Warhammer community marketing cycle, it tends to be, for big releases, they announce it. Well, for most things, I'll do an article maybe a month out.
Yeah.
And then they'll revisit it at least a week before with a follow-up article saying it's now ready for pre-release. Yeah, pre-order, sorry.
So what my gut is telling me is that they'll still want to do a big preview, because I think they'll really want to get into it with a lot of people. If it is on the scale that the sort of Heresy community is starting to believe that it is, and the overhaul, because it to me as well, if you look at Calf and Prospero, and they came as their own game systems, but were very obviously sort of Heresy starter sets as well.
Yeah.
Whereas this one looks like it's just a Heresy starter. It doesn't look like there's any additional game mechanics involved. If let's say that leaked picture is the back of the box.
Yeah.
there's nothing else sort of going on apart from the two armies.
Well, there's a bit based on what was released over on the web article, the Blogspot article. That said, within that, it said that there's a set of rules included in the box set. I think in the two highest priced ones, there's a softback copy of the rule book.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think it is going to be pitched as a complete game out of the box.
Yeah.
And I think they've reappraised their strategy because now here's an interesting anecdote from my personal experience. I think it was a 2016 Heresy Weekender, maybe the 2017 one. It was the final presentation, so there's about 400 of us in a room, and I think it was Tony Cottrell who was leading the presentation at the time. And for some reason, the question of betrayal at Calth came up. So this was probably 2016, actually. And he said, "Could I have a show of hands?" He said, "Raise your hands if you bought the game." And like a sea of hands go up, yeah. And then he said, "Keep your hand up if you played the game," and all the hands just dropped. Yeah. And it was brilliant. I mean, if he could have done that and put it to some music, it would have been ace, But there were I don't know, I think there were like 5 or 6, maybe 10, but clearly people weren't buying it for the actual game in the box. They wanted the miniatures, and they wanted the miniatures to build Heresy armies. And I think that's kind of like indicative of what I hope they've done with this the Heta Gladius, or Heta Gladius is the name according to the article of this box set, is that they are going to keep it, going to sell a set of models with the rules for the current game as opposed to like a side game. And they're going to make it all about that core game.
Which will be good. I think it'll be good for the Heresy. I think from what I understand, again, if you guys haven't seen Arbiter Ian's sort of latest video on the Horus Heresy rules, and sort of it also gives a brief overview of the history of the Heresy, I highly recommend it.
It's a good video, yeah.
But I think if you look at the moment in the state of Heresy as is, how much stuff a new person has to buy, it's a very tough sell to try and get someone to start a Heresy, especially if I haven't been in 40k, for example, and read the Horus Heresy books. There's very little incentive. It's not an easy thing to get into. Whereas if they can say, I think this Indomitus sort of level box set I'm not sure is going to be around forever. Is my gut feeling, but they seem to be following 40k. The rumor suggests with the other various levels of starter set.
Yeah, and that would make sense because Indomitus sold very well. It was a bargain as far as the miniatures went. And I suppose the other thing, the elephant in the room we've not yet mentioned, is this is a clear indication of a move towards plastic miniatures, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is going to, not just from a cost perspective, because assuming this is going to be plastic, then that opens up the possibility for it to be sold through independent retailers. And that radically alters the cost of entry. And I absolutely agree with what you say. Heresy is a gaming system to get into with in the universe models of any type. It's not cheap. It is expensive because it's a game of big battles. So big battles where you're having to buy resin models. It's pricey. That Night Lord's army I mentioned about at the start of this podcast. My client, she's very. She's got a lot of disposable income for the project, but I can see most people wouldn't. Yeah. And plastic miniatures are going to make a huge difference. And not just the cost, I think it will, the modelling challenge as well. Modelling challenge isn't a fair way of putting it. The user-friendliness of plastic, I think, is probably what I'm getting at.
Putting together large batches of resin is tedious. at best and
Yeah.
difficult at worst.
And the models are harder to build a lot of the time, particularly once you start moving past the infantry and you get into vehicles. Making Heresy vehicles well is a bit of an art form. And some of them are quite unforgiving to the inexperienced. So I see that as being a really positive development. And if these photos are, I don't see any reason to doubt the photos. If the leaked contents are to match that, I think they've definitely gone in the right direction. And I can't see how it wouldn't be a success. I mean,
I think in addition, if you think Games Workshop they can be pretty pragmatic as a company. If you think basically what they'll then also be able to do is double sell. Let's say they bring out, a glorious set of plastic Mark II. Okay. That is scale increased slightly, but not to the full height of a Primaris, which the people who have done like the maths and everything of the leak, so it suggests it's perhaps the Chaos Space Marine height that they've gone for. They're not all the way up to Primaris. These will double up as Firstborn Marines. I think a lot of people are quite scared that one day they'll look and the tactical squad will have gone away. Maybe that could happen, the old school tactical squad, but I think they will then say, you can double up these Mark 6, Mark II will be your veteran, the Stern Guard veterans, and they'll be more law friendly in height, because they've written into the law now as part of the original marketing that Primaris are slightly taller than normal Space Marines, whereas in reality they're a lot taller in the miniature form. Now they will probably still be slightly taller than a Horus Heresy scale Marine, but they fit a bit more into the law, and the Space Marines will look more balanced next to the Imperial Guard, etc. And that would seem as a big indicator to me as to why they would do that and why this might actually be coming.
Yeah. And so a couple of things there, right? I've got quite a few thoughts now. I've been trying to not forget them while you're talking.
Okay, yeah, go on, hit us.
So firstly, on the scale, I recently did a video where I tried to compare the size of the two recently released Imperial Fist Protos, so one in Artificer armor and one in Tartros Terminator armor, or Terminator armor. And from that, my feeling was the guy in Artificer armor was maybe just a touch taller.
Okay.
But not a great deal. And I did a size comparison between a current 30k Marine and a Primaris Marine and this guy, and he was sort of in the middle. So that would be consistent with what you said there with the current Chaos Marine observation. And I could see them doing that because Games Workshop figured out a number of years back that by increasing the model size, they could make them much more attractive to people. And this actually they first tested this with the Stormcast Eternal range and Age of Sigmar.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And you can, and I could see that strategy following through because, and into 40k with the obvious introduction of the Primaris Marines. They are that bit bigger, and by making them a bit bigger, it's just easier to paint them. So I think, I have a feeling these new Marines are going to be somewhere in between the two, a current Marine and a Primaris Marine. Now, will that matter? I think this is where you get purely down to the personal opinion.
Yeah.
If you want all your Space Marines to be exactly the same height, then it might not be something that would influence your purchasing choices. If you're a person who thinks, well, people are different heights, so Space Marines are different heights, it may not be an issue. If you're a person who says, well, actually, I just like the model, and I like this model here, and I like that model there, I want them in the same army, so I'm going to make them fit together, that can work as well. And I've got a friend who's got a very big World Eaters 30k army, and he's got resin miniatures from Forge World in there. He's got plastic miniatures, but he also came across he got hold of a box of the original Imperial Space Marines, the plastic models, the RTB-01 from all the way back in 1987. and he wanted to add them to his World Eaters. And if you compare the scale on those to the current Marines, they do look a bit on the small side. The scale is quite notable. But all he did was he just built some rubble upon the bases and then stuck them on. And, when you've got 100, nearly 200 World Eaters on the table, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. That's a lot of World Eaters. That's a scary thought.
It's a lot of World Eaters, yeah. We played a game at Warhammer World earlier this year against my word bearers, and it looked absolutely stunning. This horde of angry Space Marines coming at a horde of filthy, corrupt traitor Space Marines. It was a great day.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
How many of them got impaled on tanks, though? That's my question.
Yeah.
Well, Khan got impaled on a Galvorback claw.
Oh, nice.
Good enough.
Taking the Argyle Khan bromance to a new level.
It certainly did, yeah.
Have you had a chat? You have an Argyle tile now, don't you? Because
yes, I do. I bought the new miniature when it came out. I did a review on it as well. It's a character series model, but not in name.
Okay.
The level of detail is they've done I believe they've decided to do away with the scenic bases, makes them a bit cheaper, a bit more focused on tabletop. But yeah, I've got that. A person I know has very kindly painted it for me as well. She's called Bees. She's active over on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, she'd already painted me 10 Gal Vorback, the Dark Brethren miniatures. So
oh, nice. Yeah, so keep it in style then as well, which is
cool. Yeah. So she's done that, and it's amazing. The little touches on the model, the details, like the pair of eyes in the shoulder pad looking at the dismembered Space Marine is brilliant.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That's quite a miniature, that is, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I think Argyle Tile is a special Heresy character, and I think they've done him justice. And it's only a matter of time until someone kit bashes together him with his Custodes spear, I'm sure. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Something. Just think. We've been talking all about the rumours and what have you.
Yes.
I think that there's something that I'd like us to think about now, which is around the general piece of communication around the Horus Heresy of the last few years.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it has been a bit. There's been a dearth of official information coming out of Forge World around this. And it is weird because if you've been in Heresy for any period of time, certainly, in the period up to 2016, Forge World were always there was lots of information to be had about what they were working on, and if you went to the events, there was always lots of work in progress stuff, and it felt very different to the sort of very closed off approach that Games Workshop main used. Yeah. I think this is around IP protection, and in the world of 3D printers and CAD design, there are good reasons to do this. But that we don't get that from Forge World anymore. And I think over the last couple of years, this dearth of information has kind of it's been a bit disheartening for some people. But I think the reason has happened not because Forge World don't want to tell us stuff anymore. I think it's because, as a business, the GW board, in effect, has decided that all information about products is going to come through Warhammer Community.
Yeah.
And that is going to be the one and only mouthpiece, and they are going to control what is shown and what isn't. And I think that has happened, and no one was ever told it was going to happen. So from the point of view of the fans and the customers, all of a sudden, certainly people, as I say, have been in it for a while, we've gone from this sort of feeling of being very engaged and getting lots of information to then having none or very little. And it has been a bit jarring, and a number of people have commented on it, but I don't think, I think it's kind of it's something that Games Workshop's done internally, but they never told people about it. And some people have drawn the least charitable conclusions on the basis of that. But personally, I think it's because of a wider change in communication policy in the business.
Yeah. I think, from what I understand of the Forge World guys, they're perhaps some of the more, I think to work at Games Workshop, you have to like, for the most part, you have to like the world that you're making. I don't think it doesn't really strike me as a company that you can get it, you could enjoy being in by just sort of working it as a 9 till 5. I think almost everyone at that company is actively enjoying the same sort of universe models that everyone else is, and it would the Forge World comment on Facebook strikes me that perhaps there's someone still maybe running the Forge World account from Forge World, just because it was not a very sort of Warhammer community reply. We'll let
It was
you know if
unguarded,
anything.
wasn't it?
Yeah. It seems like it's someone who's decided to have a bit of a banter and sort of engage on that level. So no, absolutely. I think the rumors also are that a lot of the Heresy guys have moved from Forge World to sort of Games Workshop teams now, which probably is part of that.
I mean, what I heard is, so this was in the sort of 2017 to 2018 period. The whole design studio was restructured. So they set up specialist games, but they also, I think they changed how they work. So the people at Forge World were more aligned to supporting Games Workshop's wider product line. And you can see this when you look at developments like Necromunda and Adeptus Titanicus. You got core plastic ranges supported by resin accessory packs, and that's definitely been a direction they've been going on in. And perhaps that is a model that we'll see for the Heresy in the years to come.
It's my understanding that Forge World is like less than 10 guys and girls as well, isn't it? Is that right?
Well, it depends what you mean by Forge World. I mean, they've got a staff. Last time I went to an event and I got a program, there was a staff of 30 or 40 people in total across the studio. And that included specialist games. However, if you're going to narrow it down to the miniature sculptors or the rules writers, you're only talking about a handful of people.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for a small group.
Yeah.
When was the last sort of Heresy Weekender? Was there one in 2019?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, there was one in 2019, and they held that. That was a good event. They had to choose a different venue to where they previously run it. They run it at a hotel. I'm trying to remember the name of the hotel they used to run it at. So I used to stay there with business, but they moved it to the Radisson Blu at Castle Donington for 2019. It was an okay venue. It was a little bit. They didn't have enough seminar rooms, I don't think, or a big enough seminar room. So that's sort of chopped things around a bit. But it was still a great day. I really enjoyed it.
Good.
The Belfry, that was the Belfry Hotel in Nottingham. That was the original venue they'd used for a number of years.
It's my understanding that at the last sort of one of these Horus Heresy Weekenders, they did tell people that the Khan is getting a bike model as well. So I saw a lot of people panicking on Twitter about the Khan not being on a bike.
Yeah,
I think that's still coming. Is what I understand.
I mean, yeah, it's in the rules, and it's so much a part of the character, isn't it? I think it's just a question of if, when, not if.
So just to add to that, Valrax Alfarius, I believe, or perhaps his Omegon, who is his sort of TBC if he's any good or not. One of those guys said they've got a model designed for every character in the rules. Is what I remember from a live stream Valrax did. So I think everything that's going to be in the rules is inevitably. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like over the next 3 months they're going to bring out every character that has a rule. But supposedly, just to try and keep a little bit of optimism out there for people, there is a plan for everything. I assume a lot of people who had a lot of joy kit bashing models that didn't have rules. So in a way, that's quite good as well. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, for the keen kit bashers, the Heresy is a brilliant setting to be in. But yeah, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it, to get a model for every named character in the rules at the moment. There's such
most notable being the Emperor.
Well, it was mentioned in the Custodes arm list.
Yeah.
So I've got
that might be tongue in cheek. That'd be kind of quite funny, but I kind of want to see what they could pull off with him.
Oh well, I think it'd be a shame not to.
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking to myself one day, a great model to do. This is purely display, and I don't know if it's Games Workshop's thing, but they could do a model of the Emperor on the Golden Throne before the final battle on the
Vengeful Spirit. Yeah,
Vengeful Spirit. Thank you. I'm terrible with name recollection this evening. And then afterwards, as like the Corpse Emperor.
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? There's a thought.
But,
yeah. But there's I don't know. There's so much that's happened, hasn't there, over the last year and a half, and so many rumors and leaks and this and that. It can only be a matter of time before I think we see something really big and exciting for the Heresy.
That's what I'd say for people in Heresy who are worried about it and people thinking about getting into Heresy. I would just sort of say keep the faith. I think it's a matter of time. The main thing to go off, which is those leaked photos, Hollywood would need to hire the person who faked them if they're faked, because they've done it in such a way that it would just be impressive more than upsetting, really, for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be the troll of the decade, the wargaming troll of the decade. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree. I think there's lots of things to be optimistic about on the horizon. I mean, touch wood, let's hope the start of 2022 brings us some news. And there was some. Do you remember I mentioned the White Dwarf article on Armour Through the Ages?
That's
from
right.
October this year. Well, that was a rewrite in a way. It wasn't a rewrite. It was like a revisiting of an article from a White Dwarf in 1990?
Okay.
It was White Dwarf 127, if I remember rightly.
Wow.
So
it should be in the vault on Warhammer Plus, right?
It will, yeah, I'm sure, yeah. But yeah, that was the original article where they talked about the different Space Marine armies, and it was a series of John Blanche sketches, and they explained the development. This new article did the same thing, but it like expanded on it. It introduced some new ideas, which I really liked. For example, it talked about the information war between the Mechanicum and how different forgers waged an information war against each other to steal designs, and it was through this process that all the traitors and the loyalists got access to each other's equipment once they walked.
Oh, really? That is cool.
Yeah, and when you actually think about it and you combine it with, let's say, the thoughts from the novel Mechanicum, where that gets into the Mechanicum's information web, it's like, it makes perfect sense.
That is a short story waiting to be written there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of there's some really interesting world building there, and I read that article and I thought it was cleverly written because the words were carefully chosen, and you read that and you should come away. I came away thinking it reinforced a message that is buried in the Black Books as well. That whatever you want to do in the Heresy, you should never say you can't do anything if you want to do it. All the legions used all the different types of marine armor at some point. Everybody used all the vehicles at some point.
That's right.
And I think this article subtly makes that point. And it's a good bit of world building as well. And there was some nice little shout outs in it. So there was a bit saying about the lost Space Marine mark, and they'd written it, and it was little homage to the original Space Marine model, the Imperial Space Marine that they redid as a 30th anniversary of 40k model.
Yeah.
So that's been canonized now.
Oh,
and
cool.
also, and here's a little thing to finish on and a little thought to leave the viewers with. In the article, they talk about Mark 1 Thunder Armor. And there is a mention at the end to say that it was used by certain legions during the Heresy when needs must. So is that like a little hint that we might get a Mark 1 armor kit at some point?
It's either someone's not really realised what they've said, or they know exactly what they've said. It's one or the other, isn't it? There's no in between on that. That'd be very cool. You know, once everyone's on Terra and you're all within an atmosphere, I guess you could, if needs must, with some Imperial Fists or some Blood Angels running around in Mark 1. That'd be very
a couple
cool.
of them just got bolter holes on him, you know.
Exactly.
Wonder why.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to analyze, which, you know, given how much time we filled up just talking about everything that's, you know, made its way out, some of which is yet to, you know, people are staking sort of reputations on it, which, you know, I think gives them in a way some sort of credibility, but a pinch of salt has to be taken with everything. Again, perhaps for the troll of the decade incoming. When that box set we just go another year and that box set never shows up, and then I'll just have to sort of slow clap whoever's leaked that, because that's just too impressive. But yeah, I mean,
well, perhaps we'll all have to eat a bit of Heresy humble pie then, but we'll see.
That'd be great. I would pour one out for the person who's faked that image every time that Heresy's mentioned.
I would actually give them a pat on the back in the same way I gave Warhammer Community a pat on the back when they ran the Plastic Thunderhawk article, because thought that was
expert level shithousery there. Yeah, that was when Nick Baton's fingers clasp it and he starts making the
I love that because it's playing on the meme of the Plastic Thunderhawk, but it was just funny.
They knew exactly what they were. They were like, right, let's shoot this with no sense of scale, so that everyone really thinks that this is it. And then Nick, you come in and play with it like you're a 5-year-old. Yeah. And it was outstanding. That was outstanding. I'm looking to get some. I've got some. I'm working on some plastic Fire Raptors at the moment. I hear that the full scale one is a bit harder.
I recently built a full size Fire Raptor as a commission for a chap, and it's a gnarly kit. Yeah, it would be unkind to an inexperienced modeler.
Yeah,
and there's a thought as well, Singh. Now we've got these Space Marine flyers in Aeronautica at micro scale. That shows all the designs are digitized and at a point where they could be turned into plastic production.
Yeah.
And, you know, a bit like when you're doing your character design, all you need to do is slide that scales switch up to full size. And, I think,
I guess in a way it's that easy.
Yeah. Well, it's not super easy like that, but there is more to it than just that. But that, you know, in terms of the design work, the actual digital design, that there is a lot of truth to that, because I spoke with another open day. I think this was 2018 when Titanicus was released. I had the opportunity to chat with the guy who did the designs, and I was asking him about this, and he said with the Warlord, he took the full-size design, which was digital, and he essentially just scaled it down 4 times.
All right.
And he said, other than having to take out a couple of little pipe details, which he didn't think would reproduce in plastic, and reprofile the edges of the armor plates so they were a bit more proud and they'll stand out at a small size. You know, essentially it's just doing that and then redesign it as a small kit to, you know, turn into a sprue. So, yeah, if they can do that with a Warlord Titan, you know, surely they can do it with a Stormbird.
It'll only cost you 400 quid instead of the 800.
Yes, Stormbird, or a plastic Thunderhawk, a plastic Fire Raptor, or a plastic Storm Eagle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Never thought, eh?
I guess we'll wrap this up with a final segment that we're going to start now for our guests. And Leaky, I guess you can be the first to sort of take this on. It is
Okay.
our theory. Now I know you haven't read everything necessarily, but it is our theory that there's going to be a twist at the end of the Siege of Terror. There's going to be something that's really going to change the outlook of how you look at Horus Heresy, because everyone knows the overall outcome, but there's still a lot of in between, and what we know is perhaps just the Imperium's way that it is told. So, in your opinion, serious or otherwise, what could be the big twist in the final book?
Magnus didn't do anything wrong? No, that's...
Yeah, that's impossible. No, it can't possibly happen.
All right, okay, that's in jest.
So
okay, as a prop... Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, well, I was just going to say we've had... What have we had, Varela? Mine is that Sanguinius is going to get killed by the Emperor. I think something's going to happen that he's probably going to fall to... He's maybe even helps beat Horus with the Emperor, but falls to the Black Rage and has to be put down, which I think would completely flip Blood Angels players on their heads. I don't know if there's anything else we've come up with, Varela.
Yeah, I had a slightly different one where the Emperor just kind of claps Horus instantly, and Sanguinius... No, that wasn't it. It was oh yeah, like, you know how most Primarchs or other beings just kind of bow down to the Emperor, like, on instinct. I thought that, like, maybe Horus just kind of, when he reunites with the Emperor, just goes like, oh god, what have I done? Kind of like what the Cabal think he's struggling with inside, because he's like, oh, I'm not so sure about this course of action, this is probably pretty bad, and then eventually just implodes humanity, or at least that's what they think he's gonna do, right? But in what I was thinking, it's more of a, like, he sees the Emperor and just goes like, oh god, I've fallen so far, just want redemption, and the Emperor, being Jimmy Space and all, just kind of goes like, oh, okay. just lets him in, and then Sanguinius just goes into the Black Rage like, what the hell? This guy just destroyed half the galaxy and you're just doing that? And just, like, flies into a rage, and the Emperor just kind of claps them both for, like, a psychic blast or something. Eventually, like, on accident, probably.
Something, yeah, those are interesting ideas I suppose, that's challenging the preconception of the battle between Horus and the Emperor and its outcome and its circumstances. Okay, right, I'm going to go with a slightly different angle.
Okay, hit us.
I would like to see a twist which is something to do about the Emperor's origins and his relationship with Malcador the Sigillite.
Interesting.
And how that might... one of the things about the whole Heresy story is, what on earth was the Emperor up to? What was the Emperor's real end goal, and why was he doing it?
Yeah. It's a question so big, most people just sort of tend to ignore it, don't they?
Yeah. And I don't know. It's fascinating to think what might come of that, because if you think about the Heresy and the Imperium and the leaders, who, there's these two people. There's the Emperor, and then there's Malcador the Sigillite, and neither of them survive the Heresy in any sense of the word. Well, Malcador is completely gone, as far as we know.
Yeah, as it stands.
The Emperor, yeah, and then the Emperor is reduced to this state of undeath. I don't know. But there's something about those two, and why they were always so close in terms of how they were working together, and they've got very mysterious origins as well. I'd love to see a twist that exposes the Emperor's motivations for creating the Imperium.
It's very,
and a twist in that it's something that no one had ever expected, and certainly the in universe, wasn't expected by, say, the Primarchs even.
Yeah, it's very very Chicken Run of you. It's those leaders of
Very
the
sorry,
Imperium.
I just lost you a second.
Yeah. Sorry?
Sorry. I just lost you then. The audio cut out. It was very what of me?
Chicken Run.
Chicken Run.
Those leaders of the Imperium are up to something.
Brilliant.
So, there you go. But yeah, that is a good theory. It's not it's not detailing something, because I think to try and pinpoint what that twist would be, I don't think I could make you do on the spot. However, I think that is definitely something that we haven't necessarily looked directly at too much. I think there must be something out there in that final book that will change a lot of how we perceive 40k. I think that's just something that they have to do. I can't really see them just following the recipe completely.
Yeah, because that moment of the Emperor's mortal wounding, could that be the moment when he goes like, "Oh, it was all for nothing"?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
even say, "Well, it wasn't quite what I planned, but it's going to work out for me anyway."
Or just as planned.
Oh no, he's Zinch.
Yeah.
There you go. The Emperor is Zinch.
Okay, yeah, that's the clickbait title. But yeah, I think that leaves us with a lot of food for thought, and I think we'll wrap the episode up there. Varela, as we do, Leaky, we have to thank the patrons of the Imperium, and in particular, we have a Primarch tier Patreon that Varela must now thank as part of a condition of them becoming a Primarch tier Patreon. Varela, do you want to do the honors?
I signed this contract and gained nothing from it. Give me a second.
Yeah, he did.
Right.
The small
Thank you, Vasily, for your very kind donation monthly. We appreciate it. We appreciate you and all the Patreons over at Patreon. And yeah, I need to refine this.
It's okay. Ad hoc is the way to go in this podcast. Anyway, to end the episode there, it is goodbye from me, and from Varela.
I'll see ya.
And from Leakycheese.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on, Singh, Varela. It's been a real pleasure. And yes, goodbye to all your viewers.
Goodbye now.